Hello friends, we'll be discussing the concept of how to define economics and the four different definitions we have for it. The reason why we are discussing this concept of how to define economics is because economics has been divided into four different categories or four different definitions that can explain the whole progressive way of the economics. Let's start with a brief introduction of it. Stephen D. Levitt, an award-winning economist, said that since the science of economics is primarily a set of tools as opposed to the subject matter, then no subject, however offbeat, need to be beyond its reach. Now, this one philanthropist or one scientist who has mentioned this definition has given a reason behind mentioning this definition. Let's understand what exactly that reason is. He had pointed out in Freakonomics that economics is primarily a set of tools before being or rather being a subject, and the change or rather in the range of issues economics deals with in the vast enough, ranging from individual consumer choices to buy a burger or not to buy a burger, to enumerating global causes of financial crisis to be captured in one definition. So basically in economics, he has mentioned that the needs from one individual person to a whole global economy is defined in this thing, or rather in these four things, four definitions that we'll be studying about right now. Let's start with the first one. Now, the first one is the wealth definition of economics. What are the key features of it is what we'll be understanding right now. Key features of wealth definition. The objective of economic is to increase the wealth of the country. Now, under this definition, objective or rather what economics covers is how to increase the wealth of a country. It considers production, distribution and consumption as a core economic activity. So when it comes to wealth, it considers production, development and consumption as the most or rather the core economic center or rather core activities of any country when you have to define economics as a part of being wealth. It deals with the causes of creation of wealth in an economy. What are the reasons why and how wealth is created is also incorporated in this specific definition. The term wealth used in this definition considers material wealth. Now, the term wealth definitely considers material wealth. That means currency and the increase in the currency, because of what reasons there is an increase in the currency, etc. related to material wealth will be only considered here. Nothing is accepted in kind, only in cash. So this is all wealth related definition. Let's go on to the next part of the definition. Now, after wealth comes the welfare definition of economics. The key features of welfare definition are: it defines economics as a study of activities related with human beings and their natural welfare or their material welfare. So, welfare refers to or rather relates to the welfare of human beings and the material welfare, and that's what is incorporated in this definition. Marshall clarified that economics is related with income of individuals and it uses for creating material welfare. So basically, Marshall has clarified that economics is related to the welfare of one specific individual and how it is related to the whole economy as a whole part. Collectively, incomes of a group of individuals form the wealth of a nation, and ultimate objective of economic is to increase the welfare of individual by their day-to-day activities. So according to this wealth definition, whatever day-to-day activities can be maximized with the productivity will help in increasing the material wealth of the country, because every individual is an equal and important contributor for this. Now this is welfare. Let's go to the next part of the definition. The scarcity definition of economics. Key features would be: it recognizes that economics is a science, deals with the economic behavior of human being. It deals with the economic behavior when it comes to scarcity, how economic is a human being when it comes to the behavior of him in such situations. It also assesses that all physical and non-physical resources have been associated with scarcity. It also says that whatever physical and non-physical activities are there are completely associated with scarcity. The resources have multiple utility and it can be only used either for one purpose or another. The use of most of the resources are mutually exclusive. So whatever resources are available can be used either for one purpose or for another, and they are mutually exclusive. That means all the individuals bear this thing or rather use this thing with a mutual decision of their own. There's a need of efficient use of scarce resources, and primary objective of economics is to ensure efficiency in the use of resources with the proper or other purpose to satisfy human wants. Now, as these are scarce resources, we need to use them at a very optimum level, very scarcely, or rather at a one specific way, which will have a lot of productivity with less of resources being used here. So this is one thing which completely defines about the scarcity part of it. Let's go to the last part of this definition. Now, the next one will be the growth feature of, or rather, growth definition of economics. How economics is related to the growth of it. Key features would be it deals with allocation of scarce resources to be used in productive purposes. That means whatever scarce resources we have are supposed to be used in a productive way. Selection of most efficient use of the resources from all the alternative ways. That means whatever alternatives are available with us, selecting the best possible way to use these resources is one of the most important thing for growth. Growth of economics will depend on the consumption and production in the economy. Growth will absolutely depend on how much we are consuming and how much we are producing. If we are consuming more, producing less, there will be no growth. If we are consuming less and we are producing more, yes, there will be certain growth, or rather it will lead to more of exports, which will lead to economic growth of any country here. This definition also points towards economic as a study of economic system. So basically all these four definitions leads to the formation of economic system, and this information has been concluded in the next item, or rather next conclusive statement that we'll be reading out. So let's go ahead and figure that out now. Economics has been defined by various economists and social thinkers with different objectives and context. So as we said, as we have already discussed, that every individual has a different perspective towards economics. Hence, there will be a lot of definitions that you might think of. Hence, there are no limited restrictions on it. All these definitions are correct and none can be taken as universally acceptable. Absolutely right. None of them can be taken as universally acceptable, although they being correct and completely right in their own way. It points to the fact that economics as a subject deals with divergent areas, issues, and activities that has wide scope. Economic doesn't just deal with one specific area, but it deals with all divergent areas and the scope related to it. That is why it is important for a student to understand the nature as well as the scope of the subject along with its limitation before delving deep into the context. So basically, before you dive, or rather deep dive into the context, you need to understand what scope you are going to read into and what exactly you'll be going further with this. So this is all what we had to discuss when we had to discuss the concept of how do we define economics. Thank you.